All right. Hi, everyone. Today I have here my friend Mohit. Mohit and I actually connected a few months back, and I just want to bring him on, tell everyone about his story. So, welcome to the show, Mohit.
Cool. Thank you for having me, Samir. My name is Mohit. I am a Bay Area tech investor or tech. I work in tech, but I also invest in real estate. Um, I'm 27 years old right now. We have about 37 units. We've done about 4 transactions together, and I've been investing a little under 2 years. I've been in the industry on and off since about 2016. And my parents also own like a small handful of rentals here in the Bay Area as well.
Nice. That's awesome. So, you're investing in the Bay Area. Is that right? Or
No, I no, I mean, so I invest in Cleveland, and Samir and I have met. Was it a Cleveland Facebook group, or was
I
it
believe
just
it
like a
was.
yeah? So I mean, I was like, oh, another Indian guy in who also invests in the Bay Area. Like we should probably chat. So yeah, I invest in Cleveland as well as you do.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's yeah, I actually posted about a question about a lender, and Mohit actually helped answer, and guide me in the right direction. So thank you for that, man. Appreciate that. First of
Cool.
all, providing value right off the bat. So but yeah, like tell us, like, so it sounds like you had the family background in real estate a little bit, or like you guys were investing a little bit. Did that have an influence? Is that kind of like where you learned about investing, or what kind of got you started?
Sort of. So, I mean, it all started when I was 11 or 12. It was 2006, 2007. And we were renovating our house here in the Bay. And we started watching Design on a Dime on HGTV. And I was like, oh, that's like pretty cool. And it kind of got the bug. I kind of caught the bug. And then in 2010 and 2012, my dad bought a couple houses here in the Bay, which is an amazing time. I don't think that there's ever going to be a time just like that. The values on those have skyrocketed. Um, and then in 2014, he started investing as an LP in like some syndication funds. So we've had a couple of good experiences and one huge bad and very expensive lesson from that. We'd invested about 400K into the wrong syndicator. So we're still dealing with the repercussions about that, but I can get into that on a separate note. My personal experience started when I was a junior in college in about 2016. I had interned for a commercial real estate brokerage, and that was cool. It was for a boutique commercial brokerage in Scottsdale that mostly did like single tenant retail and medical office. Now they've expanded into like multifamily and everything, but that was cool. I realized that you can make a lot of money. So I after college, my first job was at a company called Graystar. So I think right now they manage, I don't know
Lot.
what their number. Yeah, they're like an international property manager. They're vertically integrated. They do development. They work with like Goldman and a bunch of hedge funds. So it got me exposed to the multifamily business, and after that, I started working in tech right after. But that originally gave me like that's a little on my background, and then I started investing in April of 2020.
Nice. So you had firsthand experience of working inside of a few operations. It sounds like, that were focused in real estate, maybe in different domains, different respects, within it, but nonetheless, it's good experience and skills, right? So there's one thing you touched upon there, right? Like you were working at a commercial brokerage that wasn't even focused on multifamily, right? So it was retail and medical, right? So
Yeah,
do you think that that's kind of like helped you in some ways into the multifamily space, or do you think they're completely separate?
I would say, I mean, just having like exposure to commercial real estate at like the age of 21 definitely had influenced me. But I would say that the biggest factor was me working at Graystar, because I was at like Graystar is basically like, I want to say it's like the Apple, or like it's one of the largest brands for apartment investing in the world. And I was there doing leasing, and I was part of like a management trainee program where we got to meet all of the big wigs. So it's like, I don't know how many billions of dollars they own or they manage, but I got direct exposure to like the CEO, the C levels, chief investment officer, their head of acquisitions, all of that, and able to make a name for myself. So it was really cool to actually like understand what exactly a really good operator was doing. And I was working in Phoenix, which as we all know is really hot now. But I took some of
Literally.
those lessons into like where I invest right now, which is like Cleveland and its suburbs.
That's huge. I mean, having experience at a property management company such as Greystar, like, they're, like you said, they're
The
huge.
best.
They're doing things. They have systems, processes. They've refined it, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's huge, man. Like, I think that's a value in itself, having that experience and seeing the inside of that operation, right? So, yeah, like, so tell us, like, how did that kind of transition to Cleveland look like? Being an out-of-state investor, I can relate to, some of the challenges that it occurs, but tell us, how was your experience in that regard, of managing from far away?
I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes actually. So, every mistake that you can make, I've probably made it. So, originally we bought a single family, which we had tried to flip, and that we still have it. I call it a failed abortion, if you will. Meaning, I've tried to get rid of it multiple times, and right now, we're kind of stuck with it, and we're trying to figure out what to do. That was a remote flip that we had partnered up with like a sketchy contractor that we met off Bigger Pockets. And then along the lines, I bought an 8 unit. We were supposed to partner up with someone. And when we were drafting our legal documents and like our partnership agreement, we were kind of going back and forth. And then like she got her lawyer involved, we got ours. And like it I realized like, okay, partners are very important, but like you have to evaluate them based on like what they bring and what you bring. Like just because they have money does not always mean that they will be a good capital partner. And so like between that, like I think we started out with 100K, and then after like some bad partnerships, some bad not some bad deals necessarily, but like there an 8 unit that I had bought, we had lost maybe like 20K, 25K. It was we bought that in November of 2020. It was off of an Indian guy who like I'd related to because like there's that trust. I met him on Facebook actually. So we bought that deal for 200. It cash flowed on paper and it had a good rent to price ratio. And then we bought a 14 unit in January of 2021 that we still own. And then I want to say 5 days ago or 6 days ago, we closed on a 22 unit in Maple Heights, Ohio.
Nice, nice. So I just want to touch on a few things you mentioned there,
Yeah,
right? So, partnerships are huge, right? Like it's in order to scale, in order to grow, partnerships are key. But like you said, right, getting into partnerships is easy, but getting out of partnerships or even being with the right partner is so important,
Mhm.
right? And it's all about what you bring to the table. It's if you guys are not aligned, if you guys don't have the right, motivations, skills, I mean, not skill sets, but like motivations, alignment in your goals, then it can quickly backfire, right? So
Yeah. And like, I mean, you'll pay the price too. Like, I mean, legal fees aside, like I had maybe spent like probably 15K in legal fees. And like, yes, it's 15 grand. It's still like a lot of money, but the right partner will add so much value. Like right now, my current partner and I, we own everything 50. It's like we're married on paper, basically, but in a business formation. And we've pulled our family into our deals too, but everything has like an operating agreement. We have our own separate LLCs that we invest with. Everything is prorated with in terms of like capital um sorry, let me turn off my notifications. With capital contributions, and you have to dot your I's and cross your T's. What happens if you die? What happens if like one partner wants to get bought out? Like it's got to be done to the right degree, and you can't just do like a handshake thing because you never know what will happen.
that's one thing that every person who's been in a partnership has told me, whether it's gone south or not. It's that have it on paper because you don't know, life circumstances change, right? Like
Mhm.
people change, right? So it's one of those things that you need to have it cleared and upfront and know that you're getting into something long term, right? And so like this kind of that might be a good segue for say like on paper, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
this property looked great on paper, right? So for anyone that doesn't know, right? Like you underwrite deals, you look at deals all day and pencil
Location,
them,
location, location.
right? So but the deals
Mhm.
can look amazing on paper, but the reality might be different or the opposite, right? They might not pencil well, but the reality is amazing, right? So tell us like what happened there, right? Like
Yeah, sure.
penciled
So
well, but what happened?
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty open with my numbers. So this was an 8 unit in Cleveland in the Mount Pleasant area. This was the what was it? It was about right across the street from the affordable housing projects. And so on paper, it was renting for about 450, 500 per unit times eight. So it was bringing about 7 to 8K a month. And I was getting it for like 25 per door. And the guy and the owner was just like, dude, it works. Like I collect all the rent, all the stuff. He sent me photos like, oh, I'm updating the common areas. Here's what some of the units look like. What I didn't know, and so on a paper, it made sense. And the assumption going in was that Section 8 was willing to pay 625. And the way that I made that assumption was there's a thing called small area fair market rent, or SAFMR. So that'll basically give you, based on the number of rooms in that apartment building and like what zip code it's located in, then it'll give you a baseline of like what Section 8 is willing to pay. Different agencies might pay a little bit more, but it gives you a good idea for your underwriting. And that I quickly realized, like, as you know, Samir, that like everything in Cleveland is street by street. And so this was in an area where it was getting a lot of funding. And I was like bullish on like a redevelopment, and maybe like our land value would be higher. And most of the agents and developers I had spoken to were like, yeah, in 5 years it's going to be a good play. So I just assumed it would cash flow, and then didn't do that. When I went to Cleveland, it's funny because always trust what locals say. In our single family flip, it was the same trip. I was like using the bathroom or something like that, and then all of a sudden, water wouldn't stop. Water wouldn't. The tap wouldn't turn. So we go to bed. We're like, let's deal with this in the morning. In the morning, we woke up. There was like a water bubble in our first floor. So we're like, oh shit. So we call. I don't know anything about construction, by the way. I'm a tech guy. I'm people facing. If you give me the difference between a hammer and a wrench, I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do with this. So I look for the water main to try and shut it off. And I'm like, I don't know. Let's call the city. So we call the Cleveland City Water, and we meet a guy called Kelly, who very nice guy. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very chatty Cathy. I like to chat people up. So started telling him, yeah, we're in town for business. Like, we just bought an 8 unit for 25 a door. The numbers make sense. Blah blah blah. We're very excited. Now, he was born and raised in Cleveland. And when he heard that address, he was like, no, 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 don't buy it. And then he ends up calling like his cousin, his brother, his uncle, everybody. And they all say the same thing. No, 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 don't buy it. So we have the building for like 4 months, 3 months, and like and it's performing, but it's like it's not optimal. It's not performing up to pro forma. So and then my property manager, she starts to get a little antsy, and she was like, guys, like this building is unsafe. There's a lot that's wrong with it. We had some tenants which were really bad. Like one example was that there were bullet holes in the building itself. And so I was like, ooh. And each month, like it would, how real estate's supposed to pay you money? This wasn't like, so I remember one month we had, I think like a $3,000 in rent collected, and we had a plumbing issue for $600 that was caused because one of the tenants kept putting grease down the drain, which you're not supposed to. It'll harden up and expand, and it'll cause it to clog it. And then we had bed bugs. So we had very disgusting tenants, and bed bugs are caused by dirty tenants. Maybe they pick up furniture off the street, but like it's usually caused by very poor hygiene. So we were like, okay, like we can remediate the bed bugs, but it means that the tenant has to go, and everybody was on month-to-month leases. So we ended up kicking out this tenant. So we had about 5 units filled, and we had broken one of the windows got broken. So for us to get a new, and this was, I think we sold it in July or August of 2021. So this was maybe in like March. So we had to go get a new window. For us to get a new window, it was like $350. To mind you that my rents were 500 per, maybe 625 at peak, like operational. And so there was a huge back order of windows, and they were like, we couldn't get it past like 3 months, or it would take 2 months. And then for us to board it up, it would cost like 250 or 275. So we're like, you know what? Like the amount of stress is just not worth whatever the upside was. Like maybe stabilized, it would be 350. So we just decided to cut our losses and then sell it. And we bought the 14 unit a couple of months later, which has panned out very well for us.
Yeah, that's, it's one of those things that boots on the ground, right? It's so important, especially if you're not local to a market. Having
Mhm.
people that you can trust in that market is so important. And if some people are maybe telling you, hey, don't buy on the street, or hey, don't buy that property, I know exactly what the history of it is.
Listen
Listen
to
to
it.
those people because
Yeah.
they know, and like I have experience with that in Memphis, right? And so it's very similar in that it's block by block. Our property manager has been amazing to us and has told us, hey, steer clear of that area. We don't manage there. And to me, that means, hey, don't buy there, right? You should
Trust
not
them.
be buying there.
I mean, I would say that like every property's got its price, but like you also have to know your physical limitations. Like a lot of people are obsessed with like, oh, you got to find the right deal, like, oh, like circumnavigate brokers. I'm like, dude, that's stupid. Why would I do that? My time is best used at my job. I can like I mean, working in tech is lucrative. So why would I spend, like I could try and cold call a bunch and follow up with owners, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm not local. I don't know what's going on, who might sell, et cetera, et cetera. So like leverage brokers and like always pay them, because if you can perform and they know that you can perform, then they're going to give you deals. The 22 unit I found through my agent, and I've used him for two other deals. So he
Yeah,
knows.
let's kind of go into that, right? So after this nightmare experience with the 8 unit, you didn't let that stop you though, right? Like
No,
you wouldn't
no.
say,
I
hey, I'm
mean,
done with real estate. This thing is not working. Like you double down. You actually, you closed on this 22 unit. So
yeah. So we closed on the 14 3 months
okay,
later, and then we closed on the 22. Both of those were the same broker and different seller.
got it. Congrats, man. That's
Thank
that's
you.
amazing. So is this the same situation? Is this also a nightmare? These 14 and 22 units?
No, well, the 22 unit this was like my first big boy deal. Like it's about 53 per door. So it was advertised as 1.25, and then we bought it for 1.15.
Okay.
And so that's about 53, 52 a door. But then this this was interesting because the units themselves and like the apartment building itself it's pretty solid. The numbers worked. The average asking rent right now is about 740, 737 to be exact, blended. And then when it's all said and done, I could bump it up to about 840, 835.
Okay.
So there's a small delta. And then so right now it's like 1.2 all in, 1.25. And then it is probably stabilized for 1.4 to 1.5, depending on cap rate. But we had several lending issues. So originally I got in a term sheet from a local bank for 4.75%, 5 year interest rate, or 5 year term, and 1 point origination, 1 point prepayment. It's pretty standard. They would be
Good.
willing
Yeah.
to lend on reserves, right?
Yeah.
It was a 20-year amortization. So they needed a fair amount of reserves as well. But then during this time, the rates were changing, and like they had kind of pulled out because they're like, we don't want to risk our capital for this. So then we go to a bridge lender. So if anyone doesn't know what a bridge lender is, it's basically like a hard money lender. So the term loans for this are 8% and 12-month term, 2 points up front, but no prepayment penalty. So I paid like, I think 20 or 30K in fees.
Mhm.
And that's expensive on $1 million building. So right now our NOI is about 50 or 85, 86. And on that, we're paying our debt service is like 67, 68, something like
Wow.
that.
Okay.
And so it's really high. So like right now our cash on cash going in is like 3%, which is, it leaves not much meat on the bone. But when it's all said and done, I mean, I can refi most of that money out ASAP. And this lender, originally what we had planned to do is like a drop and swap. So basically the seller would create a new entity, deed the property in, and then transfer the shares of the holding LLC to my company. This allegedly would prevent a tax reassessment from happening. So I would save about 18K of taxes, which on a 7% cap rate it's about $130,000 worth of value.
Yeah. So for anybody that's listening, right, I know there was a lot of terms that were just laid out there. It might have been confusing. You can go back and listen, but like NOI, cap rate, stabilization, delta, prepayment penalty, loan origination, bridge, all those things, right? Like if you're confused about any of those, look them up definitely, but you can always reach out to me
Yeah,
or Mohit. Like we're
yeah.
great resources in like the multifamily space. We've kind of, gone through it, and that's kind of a barrier to entry in multifamily in some ways in commercial real estate, right? It's knowing the terminology. So understanding that terminology and speaking the talking the talk will help in that way if you have any interest in exploring that commercial space, right?
What's interesting about the commercial space is that like the way it differs from residential is the fact everything is like driven by either an equity multiplier or divided by cap rate. So NOI, for people that don't know, is net operating income. It's your gross income minus your expenses, equals net operating income. Then you have to subtract like CapEx, which is like capital expenditures. So these are when you improve a property. So it could be like if you put away $200 per unit per month for like new countertops or like just for like a rainy day, then you subtract your interest payment, and then that leaves you with free cash flow.
Yeah. So when he says like, cash on cash return, that's right now because you have a bridge loan, right? That's a shorter
Mhm.
term loan to kind of come in, do some rehab work, stabilize the property,
And
and
then you
then
refi. Yeah,
refinance out of that loan. That's not a forever loan, right? Like you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to be in that forever. So your plan is, I'm
So
guessing, refi in a year. Is that right?
less.
Okay.
So basically, I'm trying to refi within 6 months. So that means that like day one, we have to go in. We gave new ownership letters to all the tenants. Basically like the things that you can't jack up rents on day one, right? Like otherwise you'll leave. I have 8 month tenants right now, so you don't want them to leave because the building is grossing 15.5 right now. So at peak, it'll probably gross about 18 grand.
Yeah, so these are some of the things that you don't learn. You learn after you become an owner is that you don't want half your building to be vacant, right? If you just increase
Yeah.
the rents automatically, what do you think is going to happen, right? And if you're left with all this vacancy, are you going to be able to service your debt, right? That's a
Exactly.
huge, huge portion. And if you're not able to service your debt, what do you think is going to happen to your property, right? So
Yeah. So I mean, like going back to some of the challenges, like our appraisal came in a little lower than what we had underwrote it at. And so part of our value add immediately is to go in. We're going to switch the 8 unrenovated tenants to like low flow toilets. So that would cut our water bill by 20%. That would increase our NOI. We're going to add security cameras and make it like all nice and pretty, reglaze it. And so this is able to increase our NOI like reasonably shortly in like 2 to 3 months. And then we're going to tack on a like what we call RUBS, ratio utility billing system, or just call it like we would build back water essentially. So in Cleveland, water and sewer are mandatory for the owners to pay. And then you also need to factor in additional taxes. We were unable to do the drop and swap, and that impacts our value. And then the lender originally had let us borrow both purchase and about 100K of renovations, but then they kept going back since the rates were changing a lot and they were underwriting us as borrowers, and like they wouldn't let us borrow the renovation budget. So I had to overraise about 100 grand, which diluted me personally.
yeah,
So
that's tough. I mean, go ahead.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So like I mean the deal still got done, but my lawyer was not he didn't have the stellar experience with this lender. So in the future, I'm probably looking for other lenders or just using other lenders in my network that I have.
Yeah, let me know. I have a local guy who we're using at least for the one we're closing on next week.
The
Um,
16.
Yeah, the 6 unit. So they're local to Ohio. Like they're based out of Cincinnati, but they have a branch in Cleveland. So let me know if you ever
Yeah,
need it. I could
yeah.
put you in touch. But one thing I want to touch upon is the drop and swap, right? So
Mhm.
for a lot of people who don't know about tax reassessment, right? So it varies county to
Every three
county,
years.
but Cleveland is every 3 years, right? So I know some other counties who do a point of sale. So when you buy a property, what happens is the county can come in and say, hey, your new value is X, right? Whatever either market value is of that property, generally what you bought it for, a little bit less of that. Um, then they reassess you on your new value. So then hence what happens is your property taxes generally can go up within that time period or a year after, 2 years after, whatever. So a lot of newer people who are buying properties don't know this. And I actually personally got hit with this. I was a newer buyer, single family. It wasn't like deal breaking, but it definitely put a dent in our cash flow. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to account for that thing. Like it is going to reassess at some point. Right. So
Always make sure that the deal still underwrites on actuals, and don't forget to factor in increased property taxes and increased insurance too.
100%. Both of those will go up, and from what I've seen, insurance has gone up significantly in the
Oh
last
yeah,
year and a half. So,
inflation.
um,
Thanks.
inflation, yeah, we've seen 40% increase in our insurance year over year. So account for
Yeah.
those, and those are huge assumptions to take into account.
Well, I
Um,
mean, like right now, like real estate, like be careful when you're buying real estate. I think that I'm not gonna say that we're gonna see a correction, but I would start networking with banks who are hard money lenders. They'll lend to syndicators, something like that, who have like, like 1, 2, 3 year bridge loans at like 8, 9%. And they were planning on refining at like 4, 4.5. But now I think SOFR has gone up to like, you're looking at 6%, 5.5, six
yep,
percent, and it may go up. So like a lot of the people who have raised money in Sunbelt states that are underwriting, 20% rent bumps, like in Phoenix, stuff like that. Like I don't know how hot that can be, and that's why I like Cleveland, because it can withstand those high debt levels.
yep, 100%. And that's with the changing economy. You have to adapt your strategy, right? You have to adjust
Mhm.
and seeing what works. It's not maybe sustainable, or if you plan for something and market conditions are different, right? So these are things that are really in your assumptions, and being conservative is important, right? So being conservative in your numbers, your projections, whatever you do is vital, because you don't want to be forced to make a bad decision, right? Like in a year or two, right? That's so
Yeah.
so it's really important. So yeah, okay. So what's kind of like the plan going forward here, right? You guys just closed on the 22 units, right?
Hmm.
So what's your kind of plan or outline? What do you guys plan to do?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we're all in, call it 125. So like call it 50, 60K of renovations, and then like my holding costs and stuff are a little expensive. But I'm trying to refi like a 1.45 million ARV, or after repair value. And I'm trying to get an 80% loan to value loan. So like on 1.5, 80% of that is 1.2, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So I'll refi out most of my equity and just hold on to it for the next 10 years, because it cash flows really well.
Yeah, awesome.
Um, and then after, I mean, just more acquisitions, like the whole block is mostly either condos or it's apartment buildings. So if you can assess a portfolio of, like 2, 3, 4 buildings that are all between 20 and 25 units, if you go and sell that as a portfolio, it has a premium since they're all right next to each other.
100%. Yeah, exactly. You kind of control that market, or at least that
Mhm.
street, right? So that's key there. So if you can kind of like break down, right? This deal, every deal is different from, beginning to end, right? And so
Yeah.
what's one thing that you kind of picked up on this deal? You learned maybe that you didn't know before. What was your experience there?
One thing that my lawyer told me was that don't all like I'm going to include them on every single call with any lender, because you don't want some lender to go and jerk you around, because at the end of the day, due to the increase, like our lender kind of had told us like last minute, like, hey, you can't do the drop and swap, even though at the beginning we had said, yeah, it should be possible. And that our term sheet has said that we're willing to borrow reserves or borrow for renovation. So include your legal counsel on day one. Yes, it may be a little bit more expensive, but in the last like 4 days or 5 days, it costs extra $3,000 for just miscellaneous stuff that came up. So, like if I spend maybe like a couple, like $200-300 up front, and it'll save me $3,000, $4,000 or whatever, and like a ton of headaches, and it's totally worth it. And then another thing that I would recommend is always, like, I was very lucky that the seller and I were friends. I had asked for 3 different extensions. We were supposed to close on like 4/27, and then that got pushed until 5/26 or something like that. It was about a month. So some people would have, like, if you didn't have a really good relationship with the seller, then they could have forced you to sell, or you could have had to like walk away. And I had about $30,000 in EMD legal fees and just just fees in general. Like, I would have lost between 20 and 30K of capital.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's substantial. That's down payment money, right? So
it is down.
that's,
I mean, it was down payment money. Yeah.
yeah, that's huge. So okay, no, so it's important to have your team, right? That's what I'm hearing is, and make sure that your team is there with you throughout the whole process.
Mhm.
You don't have to go through it alone. And finding other people, right? A partner who has done this, who's gone through this, and had lender maybe renegotiate terms or back out last minute, right? That happens, and if you don't know or haven't been through that, it can be quite a nightmare, frankly. So, Mohit, you're quite experienced in that space. I feel like this one's going to be one that you don't forget for a while. So,
I mean, everything, like all of these lessons with partnerships. I mean, contractors, like I was screwed on the contractors on my 14 unit too. I mean, it's just like a natural thing. I feel like everyone at some point, if you're in the real estate game, you're going to be screwed by a contractor.
yeah,
And
100%.
like, just some things that you just have to budget for. Like, nothing will go according to plan. You have to understand it. But I mean, the goal in a couple of years, I don't know, between 3 and 5 years, is to get 300 units, 500 units, or whatever in one area, and have just like your own team, basically built-in property management, built-in construction crews, just to service all of your tenants.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're going a mile deep, right? That's you're really honing in and focusing on that market. So you're going to become that market expert if you're not already, right? So yeah, so that's your 3-year, 5-year plan, right? So what's your
Mhm.
goal for the rest of this year?
I mean, the 22 is just like, we just got that. That's our first big boy deal. So it's to stabilize that, and then maybe towards the end of the year, we'll see what pops up. I mean, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So we'd kind of been like planting our seeds. Like, every time we go, we always network with brokers. We tell them what we're up to. And every time we go, we always have some sort of new property or new update. And it shows that we're actually doing something. Brokers want to see that you can close and that you're slowly gaining experience. And in the eyes of the lender, it also means that you'll get more favorable loan terms, if you will.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone takes you a little bit more seriously
Mhm.
when they see that you have a track record, right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, for sure.
And
So,
oh yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, and like sometimes, like what I've seen is that a lot of single family experience will not translate to multifamily.
Hmm. Especially with lenders, right? I've seen that they
Yeah,
could care less sometimes.
exactly.
Yeah. So, when you first started, I mean, buying multifamily, buying a 22 unit, right? Like, was that something that you thought that was possible? Did you kind of, think that you'd be this far already?
Um, I don't know, because I mean, I'm 27 and I own 37 units, which is, it's kind of like, you don't really think of like, hey, how I'm going to scale. It's I don't know, because we'll see what happens in a couple years. Like, I don't plan on quitting my job, but I mean, if I get a big enough portfolio and the cash flow covers like all of my bills and then some, then maybe we'll reconsider. But I mean, right now, it's just continue with my day job. If another property comes through, then yeah, I'm down. But am I ready for another stressful, like, 2 months, 3 months of my life. We will see. I'm not gonna say no, but I'm not gonna say yes either.
We'll see where it goes, right?
Exactly.
Well, talking about stressful, I mean, I don't know personally. I know you're working on something big, right? And it's related to real estate, but not buying properties. So what's what you wanted to tell us a little bit about what you're doing? Is it
Yeah,
causing you
sure.
stress in different ways?
Sure. So, I mean, so I just published a book. It's about 135, 140 pages called the Money Manifesto, uh, com- a no BS guide to investing in real estate or to investing in real estate. I forget the exact terms, but I mean, I spent about 6 months writing that book because a lot of my friends were like, "Hey, how do I invest in real estate?" And like, my time is only so finite. And as much as I love to chat real estate, which I do, but like a lot of them, they'll I'll talk. I'll talk to them. I'm a very chatty guy. But then 6 months later, 9 months later, I'll reach back out and be like, "Hey, what happened? Like, did you end up doing anything?" And no, they didn't. So I'm like, screw that. Like, if you, here's like a book, like, okay, if you want to pick my brain, take me out to dinner. Dinner might be like 40, $50, but my book is like 20, $30. Here you go. Read that. Then if you have any questions, then talk to me. So yeah, I'm writing a book, or I just launched the book. So I'm just going to see where that goes, update it, maybe turn that into a course or some sort of, like maybe like an Excel calculator, like a cloud-based calculator, something like that. But continue to try and do deals as well as have other real estate related projects.
Love it. Yeah, and I'll be sure to link the book
Of
and
course, of
everything
course.
below in the notes. But that's awesome, dude. I feel like a book is a huge step, and it's funny you say that because I had a mentor who kind of did something similar to me,
Mhm.
um, where he kind of gave me he gave me actually a book to read, right? And he said, read this book and then come back to me, right? And then until that point, don't come back to me basically, right? And so it was to test if I was serious, right? Am I actually like going to take action? Am I going to do what
Walk the
he
walk, or
says?
do you just
Yeah,
talk the talk, right?
exactly, right? So it's it's easy to be interested, it's easy to talk about real estate, but do you actually do it, right? And so that's a huge step. I feel like taking that action, reading that book, really starting to engage in conversation is you're starting to actually take action, right? But beyond that is, do you still continue to take action, right? 6 months later.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the thing, like you'll find like I haven't been to too many real estate conferences, but um we like there's a thing in the industry called like course junkies or seminar junkies where they'll buy every fuck. Am I allowed to swear now?
Yeah, you're good. Go for it.
Okay, cool. They'll buy every fucking course, and that's great. Like you've invested in education, but at the end of the day, it's the school of hard knocks that'll get you there. And if you ask any like real estate millionaire, like if they've been in the game for at least 10 years or 5 years, and they have done multiple deals, they haven't just bought like, like two single family rentals or something like that. Most likely along the way, they've seen the magic of real estate, they've seen the tax benefits, and they'll continue it. Like that's why I continue to buy. And to your point, yeah, I mean, you have to like show that you're serious. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, why should I invest time into speaking with someone who's going to use up an hour or two of my time, but then it's just like they're just asking, 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 they're not giving.
100%, 100%. It's just adding value and taking action, right? I feel like those two things, if you can master or figure those out, you will go really far in this space or really any space, right? So, yeah, for anybody listening and consuming content, go and take action, right? Don't just consume, consume, consume. Um, but Mohit, so for anybody that wants to connect with you, reach out, maybe find your book. What's kind of like the best way for them to do that?
Twitter.
Twitter.
Go on twitter.com. My at is Mo Money Mohit, Money Mohit.
Perfect.
I tweet a lot. My DMs are open. Find me on Facebook at Mohit Asthana. Um, and then my book is under it's a link, it's a Gumroad link. And then I'm trying to get the domain getmomoneymanifesto.com and forward that over. But yeah, just search up Mo Money Manifesto, Gumroad on Google, you can find it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be sure to link that in the meantime. And if once you get that domain, let me know. I'll
Of
update
course.
it. So, um,
Cool.
Cool, man. Well, hey, I just want to thank you for coming on here, sharing your story, your knowledge. You're clearly, have a ton of experience. And for anybody that is interested in the space, wants to learn more, connect with Mohit, buy his book. I'm sure I'm going to read it. But I know from just talking with you, I already know it's going to be amazing. So
Yeah, well, so, like the purpose of the book was like I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think when I was 18 or 19. Looking back, like that was the book about mindset. It's great and more than half of it's mindset, but like at the end of the day, a lot of it's fluff, and it kind of irked me. And so I like that. My book is just it's straight. It's no fluff. It's straight like value. It's not too much about mindset. It's more of like, hey, here's what you need to learn. Here's what the neighborhood styles are. Here's like who your teams are, different types of real estate, all of that. It's very comprehensive. And if I say so myself, I'm quite biased, but it's damn good.
yeah, it sounds pretty tangible, right? It's just the actual nitty gritties, not just
I mean, the thing that I don't like about these like quote gurus is like a lot of them preach mindset. Mindset is great, but the book is geared towards newbies. So it's like take action, see like where it goes. Try and buy your first property. Like once you do your first deal, it'll change your life.
100%. It opens up so many more doors, and
Exactly. Pun
you
intended.
start. Yes, exactly. It's have you heard of Michael Blank?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
calls
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
like the curious case of like the first deal, or the law of the first deal, something like that. Basically, it's the same thing. What's that? Once you do the first deal, you start seeing so many different opportunities open up, right? Like things
Well,
that you didn't think before were even there.
it also exposes you to a bunch of different like social media is amazing. And I found the first deal off of Facebook, but I also found like my team off of Facebook and like bigger pockets and all of that. I've met two investors, like I've raised money from Twitter. One of my buddies like sent me 60 grand and then um just without any LLC docs. I told him about the 22. He was like, I can invest 60. Here you go. One of my other friends, he invested 50 and that was off Facebook, but I've never met any of them face to face. We just kind of chat, we'll text, I'll call them, all of that. But social media is really quite powerful.
Right, and especially during like COVID and like the last 2 years, I feel like it's really helped connect people. We've never met, face to face, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
you know I want to
I
one
feel
day.
like we know each other. I mean,
Yeah,
like, when I moved to New York City, you should definitely come by.
yeah, we'll definitely connect. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just get out there, just start talking about what you do. Right, I started doing that more, and it's really powerful. Yeah, you could you never know who's listening, and really who's learning, right? So
It,
it's really just about sharing your stories.
well, it's funny because like when people mention like, oh yeah, like at my job, for example, I'll tell people, yeah, like on occasion I'll buy real estate. They're like, how much do you own? I'm like, oh, like right now my portfolio is worth about 2 million, maybe more, maybe like 2.1, 2.2, depending on how you value.
Depending on what Zillow says that day.
Well, ish. Like I'm gauging, so like stabilized value, the 22 is probably worth 1.5. My 14 unit stabilized is probably worth like 850,
Yeah.
give or take. And then I have a single family that's worth between 180 and 200 on a good day. So it's between 2.5, but I mean, still a seven-figure portfolio at age 27 is not too poor.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing, man. And I know you're gonna do big things. You're on a tear this year. So
Yeah,
we're excited to see what's gonna happen in 2022 and forward. So
of course.
excited for you, brother. All right, man. Well, any last parting thoughts for you?
Um, vet your team. Make sure that like stuff will go wrong. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, especially in real estate. So just prepare for the unexpected, have a lot more cash than you actually think. And this business is damn expensive, but it's worth it later on. And just do your first deal. That's it. Once you do it, you'll build up credibility and the bug will get you. Also, if you had made money in the last 10 years, you're not a genius. The market's just been really fucking good. that's the number one piece of advice.
100%. You know, I think Warren Buffett is something that's like, even in a rising tide, you can look like a genius, but
All boats, or a rising tide lifts all
lifts all
ships.
boats. But then we see who's naked when the tide falls, right? So,
Mhm.
or who's been swimming naked. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I double that. I 100% agree. And I also want to add, cash is not trash. You know, when you need it, cash is
sometimes.
amazing to have.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes because of inflation, it feels like trash. But when you need the cash with the reserves, it's really nice to have it in place.
It is. I mean, also, think of other ways to add value. Like one of the things I talk about in my book is like leasing. Like you can lease your roof space to cell control towers. So my property manager was telling me the story where a dude bought like an 18 or a 20 unit for like 1.5 million or something like that, or like 1.2 million. And then he leased his rooftop to like one of the cell companies. Granted, you need to make sure that it's applicable and that cell companies actually want to lease it out. So maybe if you have no cell service, then it's something that you could do. But he negotiated that they would pay everything up front, or like 300K. Mind you, his down payment was probably like 200 or 300K. So he leased up the tower. He kept the money. It was all in year one. So he'd kept 300K from the leasing tower, and he sold the building. So he pocketed his down payment. The building had probably appreciated a little bit, so he had made out like a bandit.
Wow, that's
That's
amazing.
just it's like a trick that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, yeah, you can literally get into a deal with no money at that point, right? So, or low
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
and then kind of walk
But I mean,
away with it.
that's a big anomaly. Don't go in that with that expectation, but there's
100%.
try to be creative with ways that you can make more money.
100%. There's so many ways to buy real estate. I'm learning that
Mhm.
too. Um, yeah, 100%. Don't
Yeah,
just think
I'm
that you
looking
have to put down 20% or 25%. There's a lot of ways to buy real estate.
like I would like to do a deal with like seller financing, and then use like like a loan from a bank to do that. And obviously you need reserves for that, but if you can buy a deal with little to no money down, then and the deal cash flows, then screw it. It'll be worth it in 10, 15 years.
Yeah, if you find something in like West Virginia, or in this area, I know of a bank here who will do that. Who they'll do first and seller carries second. They're okay with it.
Hmm. Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, and they're willing to let me come in with as little as like 7 to 10% skin in the game for us.
That is
So
good.
yeah,
That's really good, actually.
yeah. So let me know if you find something like that. We can always tackle it
We'll do.
yeah,
We'll do.
yeah, man. Well,
Cool.
cool, man. Well, thank you again, dude, for coming on. It was
Thank you
amazing
for
having
having
you.
me. I
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah, dude.
My book, The Money Manifesto, The Idiots or The Complete Guide to No BS Investing.
Definitely, definitely, brother.
Cool.
Thanks,
All
man.
right.
Take care.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Bye.